The manila envelope sat on my desk like a ticking bomb, its contents already making my stomach churn. Inside was an invitation I never wanted, an internship offer from my Uncle Brendan's prestigious real estate firm, Armstrong Developments. The same uncle who'd spent years reminding me that environmental science was a waste of potential. I'm Lexi. And at 24, I thought I'd finally escaped my family's suffocating expectations. But here I was, staring at an opportunity that felt more like a trap. "Honey, you need to call him back," my mum said from the doorway, arms crossed. "This is the kind of chance most people would kill for." Most people haven't heard him call their dreams hippie nonsense at every family dinner for the past 4 years, I replied, but picked up my phone anyway. The screen displayed 3 missed calls from him already. Before I could dial, it rang. Speak of the devil. "Lexi! Finally!" Brendan's voice boomed through the speaker. "Did you get my offer?" "I did, thanks, but..." "Excellent. You start Monday, 9 a.m. sharp. My assistant Willow will show you around." He paused, his tone shifting to that condescending sweetness I knew too well. "This is me giving you a real chance, sweetheart. Time to put aside those tree-hugging fantasies and learn how the real world works." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Actually, Uncle Brendan, Monday, 9 a.m., don't be late." The line went dead. Mum was still watching me, her expression softening. "Just give it a try, Lex. What's the worst that could happen?" Monday morning arrived with cruel efficiency. I stood in the lobby of Armstrong Tower, tugging at my blazer sleeves, feeling like an imposter in my bargain rack business wear. "You must be Lexi," a voice called out. A young woman with bright eyes and a sharp pantsuit approached. "I'm Willow. Welcome to the Lion's Den." Her smile seemed genuine, a rare sight in this chrome and glass monument to corporate success. As she led me through the security gates, I caught snippets of conversation from passing employees, all speaking in that same clipped, important tone I'd come to associate with my uncle's world. "Brendan's in meetings all morning," Willow explained, leading me to a small cubicle. "But he left strict instructions about your first assignment." She handed me a stack of files. "These need to be digitized and cross-referenced by end of day. The scanner's down the hall." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Word of advice? Double-check everything. Mistakes aren't tolerated here." I nodded, already feeling overwhelmed. As Willow walked away, I noticed a locked filing cabinet behind my desk, marked with a simple label. Project Eden. Confidential. The morning dragged on, filled with mind-numbing data entry and forced small talk with passing colleagues. Around lunch, Brendan finally appeared at my cubicle, his imposing frame casting a shadow over my desk. "How's our newest family recruit settling in?" he asked loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Not too overwhelming for you, is it?" "I'm managing just fine," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Actually, I had a question about these development proposals." Now, he cut me off, patting my shoulder. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Master the basics first, sweetheart. We wouldn't want you in over your head." As he walked away, I heard snickers from nearby cubicles. My cheeks burned, but something else caught my attention. A notification popping up on my computer screen. An email, sent to the wrong address. Project Eden. Clean-up required at Site 7. Environmental survey results must be altered before submission. Handle with usual discretion. I quickly closed the email, heart pounding. Looking around, nobody seemed to notice my reaction. The locked filing cabinet suddenly felt like it was radiating heat behind me. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. "How's your first day going, honey?" I stared at the screen, then at the email, then at the filing cabinet. Something wasn't right here, and for the first time, I felt grateful for my environmental science background. Maybe this internship wasn't such a bad idea after all. Just then, Willow passed by, dropping another stack of files on my desk. But I caught her expression, a knowing look that suggested she'd seen the email too. She slipped me a post-it note. "Break room 5 p.m. We need to talk." I crumpled the note and got back to work, my mind racing. I came here ready to prove myself to my family, but now I had a feeling I was about to uncover something much bigger than family drama. The locked cabinet seemed to mock me with its secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Project Eden was going to change everything. The break room was empty except for Willow, who sat in the corner nursing a coffee that had probably gone cold hours ago. She didn't look up when I entered, just gestured to the chair across from her. "Close the door," she said quietly. I did, then sat down, my heart hammering against my ribs. "That email today wasn't sent to you by accident," Willow finished, finally meeting my eyes. "I redirected it to your inbox. Needed to see if you were different from the rest of your family." "Different how?" "Someone who might actually care about what's really happening here." She pulled out her phone, showing me a series of photos: pristine wetlands marked for development, endangered species habitats, protected areas. "These were all acquired by your uncle's company in the past year." My stomach dropped. "But these areas are protected by federal law. How—" "Money talks," a male voice interrupted. I spun around to see a tall guy with glasses leaning against the doorframe. Willow relaxed slightly. "It's okay. This is Corbin from IT," she said. "He's been helping me gather evidence." Corbin closed the door behind him and pulled up a chair. "Your uncle's really good at making problems disappear. Environmental surveys get doctored, local officials get paid off, and suddenly protected land becomes prime real estate." "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because you're family," Willow said. "You have access nobody else has. And based on your reaction to that email, you actually give a damn." Before I could respond, voices approached in the hallway. We scattered, pretending to be engaged in casual conversation about coffee brands when two executives walked past. Later that night, most of the office had cleared out. I stayed late, using my family connection as an excuse to access more files. Willow had shown me how to log into the system using an admin password Corbin had acquired. The computer hummed as I dug deeper into Project Eden's files. Each document revealed more horrifying details: threatened species being relocated, water quality reports being falsified, indigenous burial grounds being quietly paved over. "Working late, sweetheart?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. Brendan stood in the doorway, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Just trying to learn the ropes," I said, quickly minimizing the windows. "You always said I needed to apply myself more." He walked over, placing a heavy hand on my shoulder. "That's what I like to hear. But don't push yourself too hard. Some things are better left to more experienced hands." As he spoke, I noticed his phone screen light up with a text. "Site 7 situation handled. No traces." "Of course, Uncle Brendan," I smiled, feeling sick. "I know my place." After he left, I texted Willow. "Need to talk. Now." We met in the parking garage, where Corbin was already waiting in his car. The engine running provided cover for our conversation. "He's destroying evidence," I said, climbing into the back seat. "I saw a message about Site 7. "Shit," Corbin muttered, typing frantically on his laptop. "That was one of our strongest leads." "We need to move faster," Willow said. "Lexi, can you get into his office? There's a safe behind his fishing photo." "I don't know the combination." "You don't need to," Corbin interrupted, passing me a small device. "This will handle it. Just need 5 minutes alone in there." A car door slammed somewhere in the garage, making us all jump. Through the window, I saw Brendan walking to his luxury SUV, talking on his phone. "Keep things under wraps until the permit's clear," his voice echoed off the concrete walls. "If anyone starts asking questions, you know what to do. We've got too much invested to let some tree huggers derail this now." We stayed silent until his car disappeared up the ramp. "Tomorrow," I decided. "He has a board meeting at 10. I'll do it then." Willow squeezed my hand. "Are you sure?" "Once we start this—" "I'm sure," I cut her off. I watched him laugh at my environmental science degree for years, calling it worthless. Now I know why, because people like me are exactly what he's afraid of. Corbin closed his laptop. "Just remember, we're dealing with someone who makes problems disappear. Be careful." That night, I could barely sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those wetlands being drained, those habitats being destroyed. My phone lit up around midnight. A text from Mom. Your uncle mentioned you're staying late at work. So proud of you for taking this seriously, honey. I stared at the message, wondering how she'd feel when she discovered what her brother was really doing. How our whole family would react when their golden boy's empire came crashing down. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. But as I finally drifted off, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't the only ones making plans. In this game of corporate chess, I was starting to wonder if we were the players or the pieces. 10 a.m. sharp. I watched Brendan stride into the board meeting, his expensive suit a armor of authority. The moment the door closed, I moved. Clear. Willow's voice crackled through my earpiece. Corbyn's idea. You've got 12 minutes, Max. My hands trembled as I swiped my keycard, being family had its perks, and entered Brendan's corner office. The phishing photo hung exactly where Willow said it would be. Behind it, a sleek wall safe waited. Okay, I'm in position, I whispered, pulling out Corbyn's device. What now? Connect it to the keypad, he instructed through the earpiece. And hurry, the algorithm needs at least 8 minutes to... The office phone rang, making me jump. 3 rings, then voicemail. Mr. Armstrong, this is Zane McGee from the Daily Tribune. I'm following up on some interesting information about Project Eden. Call me back at... I scrambled to write down the number while Corbyn's device worked its magic. A journalist. This could change everything. The safe clicked open just as Willow's voice hissed, "Movement in the hallway." I grabbed everything I could, folders, USB drives, an external hard drive, stuffing them into my bag. The phishing photo was barely back in place when voices approached. Just grabbing my notes, Brendan's voice boomed outside. I dove under his desk, heart pounding. The door opened. "Beautiful proposal, sir," someone said. "The environmental board won't know what hit them." "They never do," Brendan laughed. "Speaking of which, has anyone seen my niece? Coffee run, I think." Willow's voice came through perfectly casual. "Said something about impressing the board with premium roast." "That's my girl," Brendan said. "Finally learning how things work around here." Footsteps retreated. The door closed. I counted to 30 before crawling out. "That was too close," Willow said when I reached the safety of the break room. "But look at this." She pointed to one of the folders I'd grabbed. Inside were detailed plans for something called Operation Greenwash, a massive greenbelt development that looked pristine on paper, but would actually destroy critical wildlife corridors. "This is bigger than we thought," Corbyn said, scanning through files on his laptop. "Your uncle's not just breaking environmental laws. He's systematically corrupting the entire approval process." "We need to call that journalist," I said, pulling out the number I'd written down. "Wait," Willow grabbed my arm. "We need to be smart about this. One wrong move and all this evidence could disappear, along with our jobs." "Along with more than that," Corbyn muttered, turning his laptop to show us a news article about a local environmental activist who'd accidentally driven off a bridge last year. Right after threatening to expose a suspicious development deal, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Having dinner with your uncle tonight. He says you're really fitting in. So happy you're finally embracing the family business." "Make the call," I said, closing the article. "But not from here." We met Zane McGee at a coffee shop across town. He was younger than I expected, with intense eyes and a recorder barely hidden in his jacket pocket. "I've been investigating Armstrong developments for months," he said, scanning the documents we brought. "But I could never get anyone on the inside to talk. Until now." "What changed?" Willow asked. "Someone sent me an anonymous tip about Project Eden. Said to watch for unusual patterns in environmental survey results." He looked at me. "Imagine my surprise when I traced those patterns right to your uncle's company." "We need guarantees," Corbyn said. "Protection. These people are dangerous," Zane finished. "I know. That's why we do this right. Build an airtight case. Get multiple sources. Make it too big to bury." My phone buzzed again. Brendan this time. "Missing you at the office. Everything okay, sweetheart?" "They're getting suspicious," I said. "How long will this take?" A week? Maybe 2. Zane was already making notes. But when this breaks, it'll be nuclear. You sure you're ready for that? I thought about all the times Brendan had patronized me, dismissed my education, treated my environmental concerns like a child's passing phase. Then I thought about those wetlands, those wildlife corridors, that accidental bridge incident. Just make it count, I said. Back at the office, Brendan was waiting at my cubicle. Where have you been, Lexi? Missed you in the strategy meeting. Sorry, Uncle. Got caught up in research. I gestured to my screen where I'd pulled up some harmless zoning regulations. He smiled, but his eyes were sharp. Good girl. Always so thorough. Just remember, some stones are better left unturned. As he walked away, I noticed a new email in my inbox from an anonymous address. Back off while you still can. Some family secrets should stay buried. The game was on, and now we knew they were watching. Sunday dinner at Mom's house had always been a tradition, but now it felt like walking into an interrogation room. The smell of pot roast, Mom's specialty, couldn't mask the tension in the air. Your uncle says you've been distracted at work, Mom said, setting down the plates. Everything okay, honey? Just learning a lot, I replied, avoiding her eyes. It's intense. That's my girl, Brendan boomed, letting himself in through the back door. Though I have to say, you're picking up things a bit too quickly. The way he said it made my blood run cold. He sat down across from me, his smile never reaching his eyes. Funny thing happened yesterday, he continued, accepting a glass of wine from Mom. Someone accessed my private files. I tracked the login to your computer. Mom dropped a fork. The clatter seemed to echo forever. I was just trying to understand the business better, I said, the rehearsed lie tasting bitter. I should have asked first. Yes, you should have. Brendan leaned forward. Family or not, some things are off limits, for everyone's protection. Mom touched his arm. Brendan, she's just eager to learn. Cora, he cut her off. Could you give us a minute? She hesitated, looking between us. Something flickered in her eyes. Worry. Knowledge. But she nodded and left the room. Let me tell you a story, Brendan said, once we were alone. About a young environmental officer who got very interested in one of our developments last year. Smart guy. Passionate. Reminded me of you, actually. My throat went dry. The bridge accident article flashed through my mind. What happened to him? I managed to ask. Tragic accident. Should have been more careful where he was poking around. Brendan sipped his wine. I'd hate to see anything like that happen to family. The threat hung in the air like smoke. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Are you threatening me, Uncle Brendan? Threatening? No, sweetheart. Just sharing some wisdom. He stood up. Oh, and tell your friends Willow and Corbin I said hello. Such dedicated employees working late so often. He left through the back door just as Mum returned. She watched him go, then turned to me with tears in her eyes. Mum, I whispered, did you know? About what he does? She sat down heavily. Your father knew, before the divorce. He tried to expose Brendan's dealings, but... She trailed off. But what? But suddenly there was evidence of tax fraud at his company. He lost everything. Had to move across the country to start over. She grabbed my hand. Brendan made sure we were taken care of, but the message was clear. My phone buzzed. A text from Willow. Emergency, office broken into, hard drives missing. Then another from Corbin. My apartment too. They're moving fast. Mum, I have to go. I stood up, but she held onto my hand. Whatever you're involved in, be careful, she said. Your uncle, he doesn't lose. Ever. I rushed to meet Willow and Corbin at our backup location, a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. Zane was already there, looking grim. They got to my editor, he said as soon as I sat down. Story's been killed. What about the evidence? Willow asked. Copies, Corbin said, pulling out a small drive. Hidden where they won't look, but it's not enough anymore. We need something bigger. The environmental board meeting, I said suddenly. Next week. Brendan's presenting Project Eden for final approval. Too risky. Willow shook her head. Security will be tight. But I'll be there, I insisted. Family representative, remember? And I know something they don't. I pulled out my phone, showing them an email I'd found in the safe files. Proof that Brendan had bribed half the board. If we can expose this during the meeting itself, Zane started. They can't bury it, Corbin finished. Not with all those witnesses. They'll know it was us, Willow warned. My phone buzzed again. A photo from an unknown number, surveillance shots of all of us, taken through the diner window right now. Below it a message. Last warning, walk away. I showed them the phone, watched their faces pale. I'm in if you are, Zane said finally. Willow squeezed my hand. Corbin nodded. Then we've got 1 week to plan, I said, thinking of Mum's tears, of Dad's ruined life, of that environmental officer who asked too many questions. And one chance to get it right. Outside, a black SUV idled in the parking lot. Watching, waiting. The game had changed. This wasn't just about exposing corruption anymore. This was survival. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as Brendan did a dry run of his Project Eden presentation. I sat in the back, pretending to take notes while actually recording everything on the modified phone Corbin had given me. And this green corridor, Brendan gestured to the screen, will provide a natural sanctuary for local wildlife. While conveniently hiding the toxic waste dump, Willow muttered under her breath beside me. Brendan's eyes snapped to us. Something to add, Willow? Just admiring the attention to environmental detail, sir, she smiled sweetly. He stared at us for a moment longer before continuing. I felt sweat trickle down my back. After the meeting, Brendan called me into his office. The fishing photos seemed to mock me from the wall. Big day tomorrow, he said, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. The Environmental Board will be looking for a united front. Family support means everything. He handed me a glass. I thought of the last person who drank with him, that environmental officer. Of course, Uncle Brendan. You know, he swirled his drink. I've been thinking. You've shown real potential these past weeks. Maybe it's time we discussed a more permanent position. Executive level. My hand froze halfway to my mouth. What? Your family. Despite our differences, you belong here. He leaned forward. Say yes, and we forget all about those unauthorized file access incidents. The whiskey burned my throat. I'm honored, but... His phone rang. He checked it. Frowned. Think about it. Family should stick together, right? I escaped to the bathroom, hands shaking as I texted our group chat. Emergency meeting. Now. We gathered at a new location, the public library's study room. Safer than the diner. He's trying to buy me off, I told them. Classic move, Zane said, spreading papers across the table. But we're ready. Tomorrow during the board meeting. The library door opened. We all tensed, but it was just my mum. Mum? What are you... Willow called me, she said, sitting down. You need to know everything. She pulled out an old USB drive. Your father didn't just find evidence of environmental violations. He found proof of something worse. People who opposed your uncle's projects didn't just have accidents. They were targeted. Zane grabbed the drive. This is exactly what we need to... No, Mom cut him off. This is what got your father destroyed. What got others killed. She turned to me. I'm showing you this so you understand what you're really dealing with. We're being careful, I started. Are you? She pulled out her phone, showed us a photo. This was taken outside my house this morning. The image showed men in suits installing something under a car. My car. Jesus, Corbin breathed. They're not playing anymore. We can't back down now, Willow said. We're too close. Mom gripped my hand. There are other ways to fight, safer ways. Like what? I pulled away. Watch him destroy more lives, more ecosystems, run away like Dad had to. Your father ran to protect you. She stood up. And now I'm trying to do the same. Just then, all our phones buzzed simultaneously. A message from Brendan to the whole company. Proud to announce our groundbreaking Project Eden initiative. Join us tomorrow as we present our vision for a greener future. Special thanks to my niece Lexi for her valuable environmental insights. He's forcing your hand, Zane said quietly, making you complicit. Another buzz. A private message from Brendan. Executive office has a nice view. Shame to waste it. We stick to the plan, I said, standing up. Mom, thank you for warning us, but this ends tomorrow. Then take this. She handed me a small key. It opens a safety deposit box. If anything happens to you, nothing will happen, Willow insisted, but we all heard the uncertainty in her voice. We spent the next hours finalizing details, Corbin working on bypassing security protocols, Willow coordinating with sympathetic board members, Zane preparing press releases. As darkness fell, we did one final equipment check. Hidden cameras, backup drives, emergency contacts. Once we start, Zane warned, there's no going back. There's no going back anyway, I said, thinking of the men under my car. At least this way we choose how it ends. My phone buzzed one last time, a photo of all of us in the library taken through the window with a simple message, "Choose wisely, sweetheart." I deleted it without responding. Tomorrow, Uncle Brendan would learn that family loyalty cuts both ways, and some secrets refuse to stay buried. We left separately, taking different routes home. The night felt heavy with possibility and danger. In less than 12 hours, we'd either expose one of the biggest environmental scandals in the state or join the growing list of tragic accidents in Brendan Armstrong's path to success. The environmental board meeting room filled quickly with suits and forced smiles. I sat next to Brendan at the main table, feeling the weight of the hidden recording device against my ribs. Willow positioned herself by the door while Corbin manned the presentation equipment. "Nervous, sweetheart?" Brendan asked, straightening his tie. "Just excited," I lied, watching the board members file in. "Ladies and gentlemen," the board chairman announced, "we're here to review the final proposal for Project Eden." Brendan stood, commanding the room with practiced ease. "Thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge my niece Lexi, whose environmental expertise has been invaluable." Scattered applause. My skin crawled. "Project Eden represents a new vision," Brendan continued, clicking through pristine renderings. "A perfect balance of development and conservation." I checked my phone under the table. A message from Zane. "In position. Media alerted. Ready." Furthermore, Brendan gestured to charts showing impossible environmental benefits. "Our impact studies indicate—" "Actually," I stood up, my heart thundering. "I'd like to address those studies." Brendan's smile flickered. "Perhaps after the presentation?" "No," I said firmly. "Now." I connected my laptop to the projector, because these impact studies are lies. The room went silent. Brendan's hand gripped my arm. "Lexi, these are the real numbers," I continued, pulling up the documents we'd gathered, showing toxic waste levels, endangered species populations, water table contamination. "This is ridiculous," Brendan laughed, but board members were already leaning forward, frowning at the data. "And these," I clicked again, "are records of bribes paid to certain board members to approve the project." Chaos erupted. 2 board members stood up and hurried out. Others started shouting questions. "Security," Brendan called, but Willow had already locked the door. "The media has copies of everything," I announced over the noise, "along with proof of similar violations at 7 other sites." "You ungrateful little—" Brendan grabbed for my laptop, but Corbin was faster, backing up the files in real time to secure servers. The chairman banged his gavel. "This meeting is suspended pending investigation." "Investigation?" Brendan laughed again, but there was an edge of panic now. "Into the lies of a jealous niece? She's trying to destroy her own family." "No," my mother's voice rang out from the back of the room. Everyone turned. She stood with Zane, holding up her own files. "She's trying to save it." "Cora," Brendan's face went white, "you don't want to do this." "Like you didn't want to destroy my husband?" Mum stepped forward. "I kept quiet then. Not anymore." Suddenly the fire alarm blared. Through the windows we could see black SUVs pulling up outside. "Time to go!" Corbin shouted, grabbing our equipment. We had planned for this. While security rushed to respond to the alarm, we slipped out through service corridors. Behind us, we could hear Brendan shouting, phones ringing, chaos spreading. "They're following," Willow warned as we reached the parking garage. "Split up," I ordered. "Just like we planned." Mum grabbed my arm. "Be careful." "Meet at the safe house," I reminded everyone, then ran for my car. 2 men in suits appeared at the garage entrance. I ducked behind a pillar, heart pounding. My phone buzzed. Zane. Stories live. All major networks picking it up. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around, ready to fight, but it was Brendan, alone. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed. "I know exactly what I've done," I shot back. "I chose truth over family loyalty." "Family loyalty?" He laughed bitterly. "I offered you everything. You offered me the chance to become you." Footsteps approached, his security team catching up. "Last chance," he said quietly. "Help me contain this and maybe—" "Goodbye, Uncle Brendan." I stepped into the open, where police cars were now arriving, lights flashing. "Lexi," he called after me, "you'll regret this." But I was already running, adrenaline carrying me forward. My phone kept buzzing, messages from the team confirming they were safe, news alerts about the braking scandal, missed calls from family members. I reached my car, remembering Mom's warning about the men working under it. Instead, I ran to the street and hailed a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. I checked my phone one last time. A message from an unknown number. "You chose wrong." But below it was a text from Mom. "Your father just called. He's so proud of you." "We both are." "Just drive," I told the cabbie, watching Armstrong Tower disappear in the rearview mirror. The truth was out. There would be investigations, denials, probably threats. But for the first time since this started, I could breathe. We had done it. Now we just had to survive what came next. My phone buzzed again. Zane. "Turn on the news. It's everywhere." I smiled, thinking of Brendan watching his empire crumble in real time. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's making them watch while you do it. The safe house, a small cabin owned by Zane's family, felt like a war room. 3 laptops displayed different news channels, all running the same headlines: Environmental Scandal Rocks Real Estate Empire, and Armstrong Development CEO under investigation. "They've frozen the company's assets," Corbin announced, scanning his phone. "FBI's involved now." "Look at this." Willow turned up the TV volume. On screen, Brendan stood outside his office building, surrounded by reporters. His usual confident smile had been replaced by barely controlled rage. "These allegations are completely false," he was saying. "This is a vindictive attack by disgruntled employees and a misguided family member." "What about the bribe records?" a reporter shouted. "And the toxic waste dumps?" called another. "No further questions?" Brendan's security pushed through the crowd, hustling him toward a waiting car. My phone rang. "Mom." "Are you safe?" "Yes. Are you?" "I'm with your father," she said, making me sit up straight. "He flew in as soon as the story broke. We're staying at a hotel under different names, like you suggested." "Dad's there? He wants to talk to you." A pause, then a familiar voice I hadn't heard in years. "Hey, kiddo." "Dad!" My voice cracked. "You did what I couldn't," he said. "You brought him down." A knock at the cabin door made us all freeze. Willow grabbed the gun we'd brought for protection. Corbin killed the lights. "It's Zane," a voice called. We let him in. He was carrying takeout bags, but his expression was serious. "Just got word from my source in the police department," he said, dropping the food on the table. "They found something in Brendan's private vault. Records of accidents. At least 6 deaths, all connected to people who threatened to expose him." "That environmental officer," I said quietly, "and others. They're bringing him in for questioning tonight." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're next." I showed it to the others. "We need to release everything now," Willow said. "All the evidence. No holding back." "Already on it." Corbin's fingers flew over his keyboard. "Uploading to every major news outlet and law enforcement agency." Another knock. This time we all grabbed weapons. "Police, open up!" We looked at each other in panic until Zane checked the window and relaxed. "It's Detective Rivera," he said. "My contact." The detective entered, looking grim. "You all need to come with me. Now. We have credible threats against your lives." "From who?" Willow demanded. "Not just Brendan, his partners. Other developers involved in similar schemes. This goes deeper than we thought." My phone rang again, Brendan's number. "Put it on speaker," the detective ordered. I answered. "You think you've won?" Brendan's voice was cold. "This isn't over. You have no idea what's coming." "Actually," I replied, "I do. We found your records, Uncle Brendan. All of them. The accidents, the deaths, everything." Silence. "You're under arrest," I heard someone say in the background. "Lexi," Brendan's voice turned desperate, "we can fix this. I can make you rich, powerful. Just tell them you made it all up." "Goodbye, Uncle Brendan." I hung up as police sirens wailed in the background of his call. "Time to go," Detective Rivera said. "We have safe houses ready." As we packed up, my phone lit up with messages from family members. Some supported me. Others called me a traitor. Mom sent a photo of her and Dad smiling together for the first time in years. "Worth it?" Willow asked, seeing me look at the picture. Before I could answer, Corbin called us over to his laptop. "You need to see this." A video was going viral, footage from inside the environmental board meeting. Someone had recorded my confrontation with Brendan. The comments were overwhelming. Finally, someone stood up to these corporations. "This is what real courage looks like." She sacrificed everything to expose the truth. "They're calling you a hero," Zane said. "I'm not," I started. "Breaking news," the TV interrupted. Armstrong Development CEO Brendan Armstrong arrested on multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit murder. We watched as they led him out in handcuffs, his empire crumbling in real time. "Ms. Jackson," Detective Rivera touched my arm, "we really need to move." As we left the cabin, I took one last look at my phone. A final message from Brendan had come through. "You'll never be safe." But below it was a text from Dad. "You did the right thing, and this time we fight back together." I turned off my phone. Whatever came next, we'd face it as a family. My real family. Not the one built on lies and corruption, but the one forged in truth and courage. The detectives' cars waited outside, ready to take us to safety. Behind us, the sun set on Armstrong Tower, its shadows no longer quite so threatening. Sometimes the biggest victories come at the highest costs. But as we drove away into uncertainty, I knew one thing for sure. The truth was finally free. And so were we. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as I made my way inside. The trial had drawn national attention, not just to Brendan's crimes, but to corporate environmental corruption everywhere. "Ready?" Willow squeezed my hand. "As I'll ever be." Inside, Brendan sat with his lawyers, his expensive suit replaced by something more humble. He'd lost weight in detention. When he saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Desperation, maybe regret. The prosecution calls Alexandra Armstrong to the stand. Walking to the witness box, I caught sight of my parents in the gallery. Mom nodded encouragingly. Dad gave me a thumbs up. "Ms. Armstrong," the prosecutor began, "please tell us about Project Eden." I took a deep breath. Project Eden wasn't just about illegal development. It was about silencing anyone who got in the way. Over the next hour, I laid it all out. The bribes, the falsified environmental reports, the orchestrated accidents. With each revelation, Brendan seemed to shrink further into himself. During cross-examination, his lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive niece seeking revenge. "Isn't it true you were jealous of your uncle's success?" "No," I said firmly. I was horrified by how he achieved it. "And these alleged threats against whistleblowers—" "Alleged?" I interrupted, pulling out my phone. "I still have the messages. You're next." "Choose wisely." "Would you like to see them?" The lawyer faltered. In the gallery, Corbin gave me a subtle thumbs up. He'd made sure those messages were traceable directly to Brendan's phone. During a recess, Brendan approached me in the hallway. His security ankle bracelet blinked steadily. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. Willow started to intervene, but I waved her off. Make it quick. I underestimated you, he said. All these years, I thought you were just playing at being an environmentalist, but you were stronger than any of us. Is this an apology? It's an offer. He glanced around. I still have connections, resources. Help me reduce these charges and we can rebuild together. Do things right this time. I studied him. This man I'd once admired, once feared. Now he just seemed small. You still don't get it, I said. This was never about money or power. It was about doing what's right. Lexi, goodbye, Uncle Brendan. For good this time. The verdict came down hard, guilty on all counts. As they led him away, Brendan turned to me one last time. I'm sorry, he said, and for once he sounded sincere. Outside, reporters swarmed us. What's next for Armstrong Developments? Will you take over the company? How does it feel to bring down your own uncle? Zane pushed through the crowd. Actually, we have an announcement about that. I stepped up to the microphones. Armstrong Developments is being restructured. All assets will be liquidated to create an environmental restoration fund, focusing on repairing the damage done to protected lands. And who will run this fund? A board of environmental scientists and community leaders, I said, including some faces you might recognize. Willow and Corbin stepped forward, along with several former whistleblowers who'd come forward during the investigation. We're calling it the Phoenix Initiative, Willow announced, because something good should rise from these ashes. Later, at a small celebration in my parents' restored home, Dad raised a toast. To my daughter, he said, who reminded us that real family stands for truth, not power. My phone buzzed, a message from Detective Rivera. Thought you'd want to know. Your uncle's partners are falling like dominoes. Similar operations exposed in 3 other states. We started something bigger than us, Zane said, reading over my shoulder. Good, I replied, thinking of all the other Brendans out there, all the other threatened ecosystems. Mom pulled me aside holding a familiar USB drive. Your father wanted you to have this, to remind you where it all started. Keep it, I said. That chapter's closed. Through the window, I could see the city skyline. Armstrong Tower's sign was being dismantled, making way for something new, something better. Hey, Willow called out, come see this. On TV, other developers were being led away in handcuffs, their own environmental crimes exposed by our example. The Phoenix Initiative's hotline was flooded with whistleblowers. Think we changed anything? Corbin asked. I looked around the room, at my reunited parents, my loyal friends, the future we'd fought for. We changed everything. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an environmental group. Need a speaker for next week's conference? Your story needs to be heard. I smiled, typing back. Count me in. Because some stories don't end with justice. They end with change. Real, lasting change that ripples out into the world, touching lives we'll never even know about. And that's the best revenge of all.